You're listening to the Very Refreshing Podcast with Dylan Hamar and Alek Jetzel. It's delicious. It's very refreshing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of the Very Refreshing Podcast. My name is Alek Jetzel. Across from me is
Dylan Hamar.
We're excited to have you guys listening with us today. How you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. Not too bad. I'm just, admittedly, we've been doing a couple of these back to back.
I know. Right as soon as I said, "How are you doing?" I realized that we did that in the one that we started with today.
You know, it's okay it's a pulse check.
Yeah. How are you doing with the recording session?
Doing pretty well.
You still having fun? We've been into it for a little bit.
Yeah. This is the 8th episode, and we got 4 more left.
Yep.
So
this is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a lot like the last couple episodes have been. I think this one we might tell a few more stories. It's going to go into a little bit more about like our different experiences rather than just remembering the things that we liked when we were younger or, you know, that sort of thing. But today we're going to talk about music. We've covered a lot of different aspects of pop culture, and today we're going to get into kind of a different one, not anything that you see on screen, but things that you listen to. So we're talking about music. Dylan and I both have experiences trying to be music makers, Dylan with a little bit more success than I have. But we wanted to talk about that, how music has been important to us. It's been influential on us. And yeah, we'll go with that. So I'm gonna kind of ask you a question, Dylan. What's your favorite kind of music? Pretend it's a first date and we just got our appetizers. So what kind of music do you like to listen to?
So I mean, the easiest answer to that would probably be, you know, like more aggressive music. I listen to a lot of metal, a lot of hardcore. However, the older I get, the wider that gets, because I find that, I don't know, a lot of modern metal is starting to really bleed together for me. I'm not saying that it's all the same, but I'm just saying like I require a little more diversity as I'm growing up, as I'm getting up there. So
if I'm just going to ask just to help me understand, because my introduction to metal has really been through you. I listened to a couple of, like, I guess when I was younger, a little bit like harder music, I guess you might say. But when you talk about like metal bleeding together and you looking for more variety, does that mean you just experimenting with different subgenres of metal, or how do you add variety to metal?
It's two things. It's me going back to the things, you know, it's a little nostalgia driven. I've been going back to a lot of bands that I grew up listening to, and when I experiment with newer stuff or get into newer stuff, a lot of it seems to have been like pop or indie or whatever, you know, some rap here and there. Like, I'm very late to the party on a lot of artists that have been flourishing in other genres. But yeah, a lot of it is me going back to, like, you know, I've been listening to a ton of like melodic death metal lately, a lot of like Swedish and Finnish bands. And, if I do want to visit some nostalgic, non-aggressive bands, it'll typically be bands like Billy Talent or Block Party or things like that. But newer stuff, you know, I listen to, there are a lot of people out there that say, I listen to everything. But it's like, I genuinely mean that nowadays. Yeah. I don't really write anything off. I'm pretty open-minded with music. Again, it's like, I sort of feel like a lot of metal is, this might sound a little controversial, but I don't mean it to. It's getting a little too simple and lazy for me. It's like we had this thing where like bands were really pushing the bar, and now they've eased off said bar, and it's just like, okay, so now you're trying to sound like, I don't know, you're trying to sound like 2004 Killswitch Engage or something.
Oh, interesting. So it's not even like a progression into lazier, it's just a regression into the old style.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you would think that I would like that, but I it depends on the intention. I want to listen to bands that innovated in that era, and less so bands that have regressed to said era, because I think that's a little lazy.
Yeah. It's like, let's just revisit the stuff that got us popular in the first place.
Absolutely that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and do you see, now I know a lot of people, especially like the music, people who, let's see, how do I put this? So I have found myself in many instances saying, oh, that band or that artist sold out, and now all of their music is just poppy, right? Like the best example I can think of from like my own music taste is like Maroon 5, right? Like I love the first 2 albums of Maroon 5. The third album I enjoyed as well, but they were encroaching, and now like Maroon 5 is almost unlistenable to me because it's like the Adam Levine pop band, right? Do you see that happening to metal as well, like pop encroaching, or maybe pop is not the encroacher? Is there something that's like finding its way into metal that's making it all sound the same, or what do you think?
I actually I don't know. I think that those things trickling into metal is a pretty cool thing.
Okay.
Like I like when bands experiment and try new things. People get so bent out of shape about that. They're like, well, like I'm talking in metal specifically.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you guys went soft or something.
You sold out.
Yeah. And to me, selling out is a very specific thing. I think selling out would be like, why did you change? Did you change because you wanted to experiment, or did you change because you wanted to be more profitable, or did you change because your record label is like forcing you to change? Like, what are the reasons? And I think that like, for example, there were bands that were underground that I used to listen to, and they would come through my city and people were really into them. And then once they got successful, everyone's like, you guys sold out. It's like, no, they just made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like in a way, like being overly popular in metal or aggressive music can sometimes result in people thinking that they're selling out, but it's like, no, they're just making it. Like that was the plan the whole time.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, support your scene or support these bands, and then once they make it, they're a sellout. That's what metal can be.
Yeah.
But I like the experimentation, and I know what you mean for sure, because I'm not a big fan of like bringing attention to one individual entity. I think that's gross. And I don't know.
What does that mean?
Like at the Adam Levine show.
Oh.
You know, I don't really think that's a good thing.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Okay. I thought you meant me calling them out was bad.
No.
You mean like
I don't like
becoming one-dimensional.
I don't like that either.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely had a background in like some like rock bands. I know like you were into the Killers and like stuff
totally.
like that.
Yeah.
But also at some point in your life you got into like hip hop and rap.
Yeah.
What happened there? Like how did that happen?
Well, so yeah, like you said, in high school, I was really listening to like the more alternative rock music, you know, like the first show I saw was Jimmy Eat World. And to this day, I would still consider them to be one of my favorite bands. And, you know, at some point I even did give like, you know, we'll talk about your experience making music. I took a turn at like trying to make some music, right? Trying to learn how to play the guitar and the piano. And, but at a certain point, yeah, I just like, this is going to be so cliche and so silly. You know, I moved out of the house and I went to college, and, you know, I was introduced to these other different things. And one of them really being, I had like the most surface level knowledge of hip hop. Like I knew who was popular and I knew what their hits were on the radio. But it's like when I went to college and, you know, I had roommates that were listening to different things, I was kind of introduced. And I'm going to share this like shamelessly. I know this is like the most white dude thing I can say, but there was like a specific artist that got me into hip hop, right? And it was Macklemore, right? Specifically Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, that the Heist album, right? That came out, and Thrift Shop was like the biggest hit that year when I was like a freshman in college. And it was that album, that artist that like made me like dive into hip hop a little bit more. You know, there were other white rappers, right? Like there was Eminem, but Eminem's like perspective was like so foreign to my experience, right? Like even though I knew that Eminem was one of the best and he was a white guy, I just didn't relate to anything that he was ever saying, right? Even as good as it was.
Well, because you're not like an urban kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, did I know every word to Lose Yourself? Yeah. Like every white kid kind of does, you know? But, you know, I don't know the specifics of Macklemore's background, but he's not nearly as like hard and urban and those kinds of things as Eminem, right? And the Thrift Shop was like the most accessible hip hop song I'd ever heard, right? And then I listened to that whole album, and you know, the production of like Ryan Lewis on that album made me go, oh, hip hop is more than just boom bap or hi-hats and snares. Like there's so much more to the production of it, right? And that led me into other artists, along with getting to know people who were into other artists, right? I started to, you know, understand more about the other people in that scene, right? And it, you know, today, even though hip hop does own like a big slice of my pie chart when it comes to music listening, it's not, I still share it amongst with like the other stuff that I used to listen to, right? Like
My Chemical Romance.
My Chemical Romance, those like alternative bands, like alternative emo bands I listened to in high school. You know, hip hop obviously shares a lot of DNA with R&B, right? And being, you know, kind of a romantic at heart, I think, in my like early 20s.
You appreciate like Frank Ocean.
Frank Ocean, Miguel, any of that old, and all of like the, you know, more classic R&B of like the 90s and early 2000s. So, you know, I have like a pretty varied music taste there as well. So, love hip hop, love R&B, and I don't know, as I like, it's funny that you say like you revisit some of those things, you know, now being nearly 30, I find myself listening to the music I listened to when I was 18 just as much as then, right? And it's kind of fun. It's definitely a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was your now I'm trying to think back to what episode it was. I think it was our collecting episode where you mentioned that the reason that you kind of struggle to get wholeheartedly into something is because you're not willing to sacrifice the other plates that you're spinning.
Yeah.
Almost like you appreciate having tons of hobbies.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's primarily the reason why like your interest in music never really expanded to the heights that you thought it might have? Or
Yeah, that definitely has a lot to do with it. The other part of it, I just am not very talented in that arena, you know? Like and it's like, it's also kind of interesting because I think I played this game where I was comparing myself to other people a ton, right? Like I grew up pretty religious and I'm still a religious person, but when you grow up religious, the amount of people you know that play piano grow infinitely. You know what I mean? It's like everybody in the religious community grows up playing piano, and I didn't, right? So by the time I listened to Coldplay and The Fray and these like bands that I was really into, learning the piano was like different for me, right? I got on YouTube and I was learning YouTube tutorials on how to play these songs, and then thinking maybe I could kind of figure it out and then sing on top of it. And my talent level just wasn't there, right? I'm not an incredible singer, right? I don't have like a great tone or a great voice. And I recognize that, even though I really wanted to be good. I think I recognize that. But yeah, I think you're right when you talk about the dedication part of it. I didn't know if I wanted to be a musician or an athlete or a this or a that, and I ended up being none of those things, just a mix of them, which is fine. You know, I'm happy with it nowadays. But yeah, even though I wanted to be the front man of a band, and then eventually maybe I was like, I can make my own beats and be my own producer, you know, like I just didn't have the talent for it. I really just didn't. And that's okay. It's fine. On the flip side, you do and did have a much more like keen dedication to music and a proclivity for it, like a talent for it, right? So what was your first experiences with making music and giving that a go?
yeah, when I was like very, very, very young, I think think I was 7. My dad actually got me a guitar.
Okay.
And
was it an acoustic or an electric?
It was an acoustic guitar.
Okay, cool.
And I didn't have any friends. I was very like, I don't know. I lived in an area where I was like the only white kid. I lived on a Native American reservation, and I just didn't have any friends. And I was like picked on a lot. So I would come home and I would just like play the guitar or like learn to play it.
Yeah.
And it's how I spent like basically when I'd get home from school, did my homework, and I would just like play guitar until it was time to go to bed.
Yeah.
And I just kept doing that.
Uh-huh.
Like, you know,
now, that's interesting that you bring that up. That like sense of like I don't want to go out on a limb and say that all high level musicians at one point were social outcasts. You know what I mean? But there might be a little bit of a pattern there, right? The idea that the lack of a social outlet causes you to focus inward on something that you can do in isolation. You don't need anybody else to play music.
Yeah, and there's a beautiful element to it's like solving a Rubik's Cube. You know, I learned the only reason that I learned how to solve a Rubik's Cube is because it's a mental game that I have throughout the day where if I need to see something through to completion and feel pride, I can do it, right? And music was very much that way for me. It's like I didn't have any ways to feel proud. And I know that sounds really sad, but
I mean,
you know, it's just my upbringing, right?
Sure.
So it's like guitar was like a way for me to, and eventually other instruments, it was like a way for me to feel a little bit of pride, like feeling proud of myself. Like I don't have any friends and I have like a dysfunctional family or whatever, but like I can figure this out and I feel capable of something.
Yeah.
And I think that did a lot for me in terms of, I don't know, keeping me on a good path. You know, like I grew up with parents that were addicts, you know, and I feel like I kept myself on a good path just because I was able to focus and concentrate on something. Now, later on, that thing would eventually sort of deceive me, and it would like turn me into someone that I don't really want to associate with anymore.
Yeah.
But like at a very young age, music was very good for me, I think.
Yeah.
And you know, that's just how it was.
It was like an outlet for you to prove your dedication to figuring something out.
Yeah, and just feeling like I wasn't a complete loser.
Yeah.
Like I could play something or learn like a lick on the guitar or something like that or a scale, and I would think to myself, I'm like, "Oh, I'm awesome. That's cool."
Yeah.
I feel really good about myself, you know.
I wonder if I was too prideful of a kid to be a musician, you know what I mean? Or to be anything that's like so highly detail oriented, you know? Like I wonder if maybe I was like getting too much satisfaction from social interaction and thought I was cool enough already. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I'm like psychoanalyzing myself.
There are people that take your approach and actually do really well. Like there are people that I've known that are like, it's almost like I want like the praise and the success and like all these things. And they eventually do get it.
Yeah.
You know, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But maybe like on the surface you felt you wanted something, but you just didn't want it that much.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. I agree with that 100%.
Like you just didn't want it that much. Like like you in a fleeting moment, and a moment can last months or years sometimes. You think, "Oh, it'd be so cool for this."
Totally.
But like realistically, like I don't know, you had so much more going on.
Yeah. And I think there's also like I didn't get into music for the mental gymnastics of accomplishing something. You know what I mean? The muscle that was going to build within me. Like like you said, I wanted to pursue music for the social like clout, I guess, that came with it, right? Picking up chicks. And then at a certain point, I was like, well, I'm not trying to have all of the chicks. I'm trying to have one chick, and I'm going to meet her at some point eventually. And whether I am good at singing or not, it's going to, you know what I mean? And so that whole like endeavor fell by the wayside. It wasn't, like you said, it wasn't as important to me as I thought it was at one point.
It's good because it's sort of good that fell, just because I don't know. There's nothing worse than like having someone on your side for the wrong reasons. You know?
Yeah.
Like if you want a wife or a girlfriend or whatever, you want someone that like loves your heart and your soul and your mind.
Yeah.
But like I've had girls like me because I sing and play guitar, and it's so stupid. It's so stupid because it's like one like then
well,
what?
You're like me. You're not trying to be a womanizer either. You
No,
know?
no.
Like there are. I mean, the easiest like demographic to pick on is like the hip hop rappers that are serial womanizers, you know, and no knocking that lifestyle. If it's your thing, it's your thing. That's not what I'm cut out for. So that's not really the avenue that I'm going to use to find girls and then girl, right?
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. And it's not, yeah, I mean, it existed in my scene as well. It existed in myself. I used to be like, when I say that, like, not necessarily music or guitar deceived me, in a way I deceived it.
Okay.
Because I started being egotistical and douchey, and I started taking advantage of people and just being a really stuck up asshole.
Yeah.
You know, and that's stupid. That's also stupid. It's like, it's a waste of time I'm so glad that I quit music for that reason. And I have a very long history in pursuing music, you know, like those sacrifices we talked about, you know, I made those to try to make that happen. And ultimately it wasn't good for me.
So I want to backtrack a little bit because I want to like a little bit more of a complete picture of the story of you pursuing music, right? At what point did you were learning guitar, right? You were at what point did you start writing songs? Because I think that's like one of the biggest steps between being just like a hobbyist and like a pursuer, right? And I think that when I was like learning to play the guitar or learning to play the piano, I remember there was like this whole like just like
disconnect.
No. There was this whole slew of people on YouTube doing covers, right? And you know, people be like, "Oh my gosh, that cover is." You had these people that had entire YouTube channels dedicated to doing covers, right? And they were huge, I feel like, at the time. And you had all these people going, "Oh my gosh, that cover is so beautiful, this and this and this." And in my brain, I was like, "That's cool, but I don't want to be like that. I want to write my own stuff because like that's the skill that I want to develop." And writing music is super hard. It's really freaking hard. At least it was for me. It probably comes naturally to others. But so that's like in my brain, that's the next step that I view is like between doing covers and learning how to play other people's things and really creating something original. So like, what was that process? Like you realizing, okay, instead of, you know, just learning the tabs, right, from guitartabs.com, is that the place that you use maybe?
Yeah, it was, I used like Guitar Pro and stuff like that.
So at what point did you say, oh man, now that I know all these different licks, I can kind of like integrate them in different ways to make my own thing?
I don't know, man. Yeah, it definitely started with me learning covers and stuff. And then at some point I would just like try to write my own riff, just like a riff. And then I would bridge that riff with something else. And then, you know, bridge that riff to another riff with something else rather. And then I don't know. It's just like I started playing in bands and then I would show them a riff and they're like, "Oh, sick. We should pursue that." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I would write another riff and then I would write like a chorus. I understood. I was so obsessed with music. I didn't have any like theory training or anything, but like I understood like the structure of a song. It's just, and I knew my guitar. I'm like, oh, I just gotta make stuff, you know? And you know, you understand layering, you understand, it's like, oh, if I want to write a good chorus, I have like a rhythm section. And on top of that, I can put like a lead or like an actual, like a really nice melodic lead, or I can do some sort of octave on top of the power chords. There's just like, it's so many options. And to me, like, I don't know, I have, that's an interesting question. I don't know if I ever like mentally saw that leap into writing. I think it just happened. I just was doing it for fun, you know? And yeah, I just went for it. And I was playing in bands, you know, when I was a teenager.
I want to ask you about that specifically. You said I started playing in bands because I think from a less musical like talented perspective that I have, right? The idea that I had when I was in high school and I was like, I want to start a band was I go get my buddies who also play instruments and we start a band, and that's the band that stays together until we make it. Right? Like that was like the way that I envisioned things going. But you know, you said I started playing in bands, right?
Mhm.
So what does that look like, finding bands to play in? Because that's different than you just bringing your buddies together and saying, we're a band and we're together.
Yeah, there's a difference between starting a band and joining an established band. Now, when I say established, I don't necessarily mean like they've taken off. I mean just like a band that's already playing and has like a catalog of music that they're playing. Like when I was a teenager, you know, I played in some bands in California and stuff, but here and specifically Boise, because I moved here when I was like 15. You know, I don't know. I would find stuff on Craigslist, or you know, I would see stuff on MySpace or whatever, and I went and I tried out for a band called Criterium at the time, and I was like a fan of theirs too. Like I was such a big fan that like before going to the audition, I like knew almost all their songs on guitar.
Oh, I bet you that made you like a shoe-in for them then. Huh?
Well, I went in and like I jammed and they were super impressed, but they didn't hire me because I was too young.
Yeah.
Right. So
How
it's
old
like,
were the rest of them, do you think?
they were in their 20s and I was like 15 or 16.
So they were like, you can't really come into the bar that we have scheduled.
Yeah, they're like, you can't play it. Right. Bars are a problem.
Yeah.
But I like was so stoked and I was like, oh my God, they're going to be playing with Slipknot next month and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, here we go. And I went and just blew my audition out of the water. I just killed it. And I was too young. And then I joined another band shortly after that and, you know, played all the songs they had previously written. And then eventually started bands because at that point I had like worked my way into the music scene and I knew musicians that I could like recruit into my band. And I started a band in like 2009. So I was like 18 is when I actually started my own band.
Yeah. And what did that feel like? Because as I mentioned with my own experience, I thought that was the way it was supposed to go. You start a band, right? And we all learn how to get better and play our instruments together, right? When with you, it was a little bit different. It was like, I need to master my own craft and then go find people who have also mastered in their craft, and then we create together, right?
Yeah. And this is going to sound a little jerky, and I'm sorry, but like, I would probably say by like the time I was 15, I was like a really proficient guitar player.
Sure.
Like I had it figured out. I wasn't like, you know, there's like endless progression in life. You know, I've gotten way better since then, but by that point, like I could keep up with most bands. Mm-hmm. Like I could go join most bands and be fine.
Well, I mean, you knew all of that band's songs.
Yeah.
The first time you had it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. It was,
and that's that. And the fact that you were able to like get to that proficient of a level in guitar that quickly definitely depicts the difference between me and you and how we each pursued it. Right. Because mine was like, when I wanted to try to learn the piano or whatever, it was like, when I have free time, I'm going to look at that. Right. Because I have other things that I want to do. And somehow delusionally, I thought maybe one day I could do it for a living. You know
it would just click one day.
Yeah. But you were on the flip side of it where you're like, that is my thing, right? If I'm not eating or going to school, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. It was like at that point, you know, when I started like auditioning, it was like 8 years of guitar. Yeah. You know, so.
And not just 8 years of by and by, like 8 years of dedicated work on it.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that's like that's kind of what it takes, you know, totally. Like not to like succeed necessarily, but like that's what it took for me.
Yeah.
That was my journey, you know, and so in like 2009 I kind of started a band. There was this other band called Dead Last. A little bit of a weird name, but they had like broken up and they were coming back together to start a new band, and I like went and played with them and I showed them some riffs and they were just like, the day of, they're like, you want the position? And I was like, no. I told them no because like I wasn't I don't actually remember why I turned them down. I'd have to touch base with them. I still know all those guys.
Yeah.
But like they convinced me to join.
Do you think there was something where you're like, I'm not trying to join your band, I'm trying to start a band?
I might have thought at the time that I was like too good for them.
Okay.
Which is stupid to say now.
I mean,
but you have to understand I was 18 years old. You know,
I mean, we all thought we were too good for things at 18.
Yeah. This was like 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was like a lifetime ago, you know? So I turned them down. They eventually were like, hey, please join. And I was like, fine. And then like we started playing shows and then we recorded some demos and then we recorded more demos and then we went on tour.
And this was under the name Dead Last.
No, this was years from now.
Years from now. Okay.
Yeah, I was in a band with...
so wait, you joined with them, but then created a new...
It was like a whole new band. Like we didn't have really any original music yet. I think they had like one song when I joined.
Okay.
But yeah, like it was new. They hadn't played any shows yet or anything like that.
Okay.
It was just like a new concept.
Gotcha.
And
so just so I can understand the logistics of it, how many original members did Dead Last have? If you can remember.
Like 5.
5. How many of them broke off and how many of them did you join with?
I joined with, so it was basically like all of them minus a bass player and a second guitar player. So when I joined, it was holy crap, I totally forgot about this. It was 2 screamers, another guitarist and a drummer. Okay. And we like kicked the other screamer out like way before we played a show or did any recordings because he just wasn't coming to practice. I don't think he was into it.
So why didn't you just carry on with the Dead Last and play the music they had already made? Because it sounds like you had a majority stake because you brought in more members, right? Or what were you guys? So I guess my question is, why didn't you just continue on with Dead Last playing their music? Did you guys were like, no, it's time for a new start?
I think they wanted a new start.
Okay.
They wanted to reset like their band. Like they wanted they had a bunch of like weird drama between them and they like sorted it out.
See, that seems so scary to me like I said, like songwriting is so hard to me. I would want to hang on to every last piece of music I had written. You know what I mean? Like even if I was moving on to a new band, I'm like, I can't like start from scratch. I need to have a catalog, you know?
Yeah, I don't think they were super proud of their music.
Oh, okay.
It was very like, I don't know, it was pretty amateur. And even like the songs we first wrote together weren't the best either. We got better over time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was super interesting.
Yeah, so Years From Now is the name of the new band, and you guys are demos and playing shows and you go on tour.
We go on tour for like 2 months.
Okay.
Like our first tour, we went out for like 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah, we just like piled into a van or whatever, and we just like went out there and did it. And it was
so how does setting up a tour, like how does that work? Is it one of the band members or a couple of them together just calling venues in different places and scheduling?
It was, I booked the whole tour.
Okay. How many stops was it? Was it like one a night? So we're talking maybe.
Yeah, so it was probably somewhere in the it was probably in the ballpark of it was probably like 40, like it was like a potential like 40 shows or something
40
like
shows. Okay.
Something like that.
And that was just you getting on the phone with different venues saying, "Can we play?"
Yeah, and then we played a venue and then we ended up hopping on tour with a band that was already coming through.
Oh, okay.
So then
like, we'll just open for you guys.
Yeah, so we jumped on their tour because we were going to do our own, I think. I don't remember this was so long ago, but I think we played with this band and then like they called us and they're like, "Do you guys want to keep going?" And we were like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So we just like followed them across the country. And this was a pretty legit tour. It was like a Jägermeister tour.
What was the name of that band?
Vengeance.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm still friends with a couple of those guys, but
and it was a Jägermeister tour, like sponsored by.
It was by Jägermeister, yeah.
Okay,
so that was like our first tour. It was pretty exciting.
When it's sponsored, the word sponsored means that they're providing some of the funds.
Yeah, it's like put on by them.
Okay,
yeah.
So did they just book the venues, or did they chip in any money for you guys to travel or stay or sleep?
Oh, they didn't do that for us.
Okay, they were doing it for Vengeance.
Yeah, the tour itself was taken care of, and then there was like a guarantee every night usually.
Gotcha.
But like Jägermeister wasn't looking out for me or my guys.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we were just on tour with them.
So what? And I don't want to like. It's always awkward asking about money, so I don't mean to like overstep. But I'm just curious.
No, it's okay.
What kind of like, what did the check look like at the end of like each night of your tour? Like, what kind of money did you guys get?
Dude, it ranged. It'd be somewhere between like $20 to $50.
20 to $50 split between the 5 or 6 of you.
Well, we didn't even split it. We just had
use
to
it for gas.
gas and like maybe dollar food items. And the vocalist and I had actually gone out and got food stamp cards before tour.
Okay.
And we were just buying food. We were buying food with food stamps on the road.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any like club owners or like venue owners like cheap out on you? And
Oh yes.
okay, tell me the crazy.
Get your guarantees, kids. It happened twice on that tour.
Okay, so tell me the crazy story of a club owner going, "I'm going to pay you this much," and then changing their mind.
Well, it happened twice on that specific tour where we were playing in Fallon, Nevada, and
Wait, let me ask one question before you tell the story. 2 months, 30 to 40 shows. What area of the States are we talking about? Like what was it, like a US wide?
all US, yeah.
All US. Okay, so it wasn't like a Northwest only deal. You guys were
we were going everywhere.
Okay. It was a whole US tour.
Yeah, well, not a full US tour, but
Sure.
we were going cross country and
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
But there were two stories. We were in Fallon, Nevada, and this guy owed us. It's probably like $40 or something.
Okay.
And we were playing at this place called, and I'm calling you out if you still own this place. Sorry about it, but it was,
you know the name of the venue?
it was called like the Daily Grind.
The Daily Grind in Fallon, Nevada.
Yeah, it was like a coffee shop.
Oh my gosh.
And this guy owed us like $40, and basically like the end of the night we loaded out all of our gear, and I just see his car just take off, and like he had locked up the venue.
No way.
And there was this it was on a reservation. So there was this, I believe it was a reservation, but there was this Native American family called the Nahoas. Mm-hmm. And the dad, his name was DK Nahoa.
Okay.
And him and his wife brought us like a huge basket of like Gatorades and food and stuff.
Gosh. What sweet people.
Yeah. And he unfortunately passed away a couple years ago, but super nice people, just like the best, you know?
So this guy was so cheap, he didn't want to give you $40.
Yeah, he just took off.
Like sell 5 espressos, dude, and you're there.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Or the give us a cut of the door, you know, like people bought tickets.
Yeah. So speaking of the tickets, how many people like on average did you guys have showing up to listen, to watch?
It would depend. Like sometimes, like we played a show in like Kansas City, and there was like 10 people there.
Okay.
And then we played a show in like Salt Lake, and there was like 300 people there because we hopped on a show.
Gotcha.
So it's not, we weren't like a big puller.
Yeah.
But like we were trying to go out and like the idea is that you get locals to market it for you.
Okay.
You get locals, the top locals on your show, and then you get them to sell the tickets. This sounds really crummy when you say it like that, but that's just how it works.
Yeah.
And then we wouldn't pull necessarily, like maybe we have a fan or two in that city.
Okay.
But we were so small that like the locals would sell the tickets and like get everyone in so they could play.
Gotcha. So, so not just like how many people, which you just answered, how many of the people that would show up do you think had actually heard your music before?
It had to have been like the lowest percentage possible.
Okay. So in that like 10 people in Kansas City, maybe one person had heard your music before?
Like maybe that person's arm.
Okay.
Like
So that's an interesting thing too, because we're talking, you said 2009, right?
Well, yeah, because we were thinking at the time, we were like, you know what? Like we're in Boise and we're playing all these local shows. And this was a time when Boise was pulling really big local shows. Like we would have like a couple hundred people at shows, like, and not just for us, but other local bands. Like everyone was like supporting each other. But we're like, we're going to go chase our dreams.
Yeah.
Very, very, and it wasn't a big deal because I was, you know, so young.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the smartest approach. But we were just
Okay.
like, oh, we're gonna hop in a van and we're gonna go cross country and play shows. It's
Okay.
like something you'd see in a movie,
Yeah.
but it didn't have the outcome that you think it would have.
Yeah. Because the way I imagine it, right, is you have some kind of music distribution and you accumulate fans and then you go play to them, right?
Well, I mean,
Like that's the way I imagine it, right?
ideally, if you could like have the means to like get your music out to the masses. And I know the internet is that, but that's not really how that works. You have like a music is very oversaturated, right?
Uh-huh.
So like most of the bands, Bring Me the Horizon is a band,
Yeah.
one of the biggest bands in the world right now.
Uh-huh.
They started opening for other bands
Yeah.
and going on tour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's so crazy. Yeah, because the way that you like, I mean,
It's word of mouth and it's opportunities to play shows. Shows is where like it really happens. I mean,
Yeah.
unless like, I don't know, unless you just happen to go viral on the internet.
yeah.
Like at least it was back then. Nowadays, I think nowadays you could pay for marketing and all these things. Like you could hire publicists now and like get into, different magazines or like online zines or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So bands have a very different like journey to making it, air quotes, than other musicians in different genres do, right?
Metal is extremely difficult.
Metal is so different because I mean, when I think of a rapper or an R&B artist or even like a pop singer, it's you play local shows and then you move to LA and then you eventually get like a record deal and then you go on tour, right? But for bands,
How many people move to LA though?
I know, but what I'm saying is the tour comes after everything else, right? But for bands, not just metal bands, but I would guess like a lot of bands in general, the tour comes before your music has been heard by like anybody outside of your town.
Yeah, and not even just bands, like singers. Like it's that way in every genre. But the only difference is that if I'm in a pop or indie band, my pool is humongous because it's like accessible music.
Yeah. Yeah.
So imagine, let's say you have, this is obviously scalable, but let's say you have 100 indie bands in the world.
Yeah.
It's like obviously miles more than that.
Yeah, totally.
You have 100 indie bands in the world and you have a pool of 10 fans, right? So those 100 bands are fighting over the attention of those 10 people, right? Now, metal, imagine you have 100 metal bands, but you have like one person that you're fighting over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's like the market is so much smaller, but there's still so many bands trying to do it.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, I would argue and say that there are like probably more metal bands than most genres. It's like humongous.
Interesting.
It's huge.
Yeah. Non-metal people wouldn't have guessed that.
Oh, they're everywhere. Everyone wants to join a metalcore band. Everyone wants the tattoos.
Why do you think that is? What does metal have that brings so many people in to try to be metal musicians?
That's a really good question. I have no idea. It's
because it's not like the allure of money. It's not the allure of
you're not
fame.
You're not. Well, I mean, fame could be there.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like my later on in my career, my band saw a little bit of fame.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're talking early stages.
Yeah.
But the money wasn't there.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, like with other genres, we're talking pop, hip hop. It's the bling bling, right? Like it's the glamour, right?
Totally.
People want to be rappers or want to be pop musicians because of the glamour of it, right? Metal doesn't have that glamour. So what is it that's bringing so many musicians to it?
I don't know. It's sick.
That might be something that
it's just sick, man. It's sick. Like it's a different world. It's some of the most passionate fans. Like if you go see, freaking Garth Brooks in concert, there's like 1 billion people there.
Yeah.
But like the energy is so different. If you go see like August Burns Red or As I Lay Dying or something, there are people crying, screaming lyrics and sweating, and they're like there's no room for them to move. And like some people, like there's a guy to your right that has blood all over his face because his nose is broken and he's crying and screaming the lyrics. And it's just like super passionate. It's super real.
And if the fans are that passionate, then the musicians have to have like another level above that.
Oh yeah, it's just like you're sharing that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So you ended up starting a band, right?
Yeah.
Let's hear about that.
So, like I said, I had like a different idea of how things were supposed to work, right? Like it was almost like me and my buddies discovered bands, right? And then we said we should try that, right? Whereas only one of those buddies was taking guitar lessons, right? So the rest of us said, well, let's all go try to learn now, right? So I ended up inheriting a drum set from my cousins, right, who didn't want to use it anymore. So I had the drum set in my garage. So now Alek is like the drummer, right? And then
how'd you feel about that?
I mean, drums are cool.
Yeah, but were you bummed that you weren't the front man?
Well, that's the thing. Even though I had the drum set, none of the guys in that group were going to be frontmen. And I have that vanity streak in me where I'm like, I'll be the front man. But I have the drum set also. You know what I mean? I just have it in my garage. And then my other buddy starts to learn how to play guitar. And we're like, we'll find a bassist along the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like now we all have at least the materials and we're starting to learn how to do certain things, right? So we end up forming a band that was very loosey-goosey.
What was the name?
The name of the band was Against the Current. Right? Because we were one of those like alternative, semi-emo, bands, right? Or that's what it was like we were thinking we were going to be, right? And I didn't know how to play any instrument. I had the drum set. I had a notebook full of songs, lyrics that I was writing with no melodies, just lyrics, right? In this notebook, right? Of these.
Do you still have this notebook?
No way.
Dang it.
No way.
I would love to see those lyrics.
No way.
Like how old were you?
15?
Yeah,
16?
dude. I wonder what your perspective was at the age of 15 in those lyrics. I wrote
a lot of I remember writing not a lot of songs, but at least one or two songs about the girl I had a crush on not noticing me.
Oh yeah.
Like I had a couple of those and
it was like Stand Out from a Goofy movie.
Yeah, Stand Out. Yeah, no, it was way sadder than that, And that's the funny thing about trying to be in an alternative band and writing emo lyrics is that I'm not an emo kid. And I wasn't an emo kid and I'm a pretty happy man.
In a way you were going with the current.
Yeah. Exactly. But I was a happy kid.
Right? Yeah, you're still a happy kid.
Yeah, I was trying to put on something that really wasn't in me. I just liked that kind of music, you know what I mean? And I was hoping that I can make that kind of music, right?
Well, let's be perfectly clear here. The majority of musicians that write lyrics are full of crap.
Okay.
No, I'm being honest, okay?
Okay.
It's like it's either you're writing sad songs for the sake of writing sad songs. There are people that are honest and they spill their guts, but like by and large, people are just writing to fit in the box of other people's musical tastes that they're trying to appeal to, or you're putting like stupid toxic positivity out there. Like, don't give up. You're more than this. We will fight against the current. You are more than this. And it's just like, I don't know. You're just, it's like, it's either you're like a tragic soul that has a lot to say. You're like a slut to, I don't know, you're like going against what your own current.
Yeah.
Or you're just like writing super general, like positive music.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I did have a little bit of like romantic in my heart. So I was writing like a lot of love songs, not aimed at anybody because I didn't have a girlfriend. I hadn't experienced love before, But so we end up forming this band. We ended up finding a drummer who could actually drum, right? Brought him in, and that's when I like made the transition to like full front man, you know? And he actually had like years of training. So he was actually pretty good.
This is the first time I'm hearing about this.
So, you know, we played one show. And that was the high school talent show. Right?
Did you guys cover something?
We did cover something.
What was it?
So we auditioned with Everlong by Foo Fighters.
It's a good one.
Yep, super good. At which point the lady in charge of it was like, I like that song. You guys seem more high energy than that. I think that there's a better song that you guys could play that would show that you guys are a little bit more upbeat than that.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she was like Huey Lewis from Back to the Future. I'm sorry, you're just too darn loud. You know?
No, and I think that's because that lady knew me. I had like a pretty good relationship with that lady. And I think she knew Alek is more energetic and upbeat than Everlong by the Foo Fighters, which is not a sad song. It's a dope song. But she wanted to see more energy. And maybe it was more energy from all of the contestants and all of the auditions, right? So we ended up finding this really like beat down like keyboard. And our lead guitarist also knew how to play the piano. So we found like...
Was he one of these religious kids?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. So he had the piano experience from early.
They had like a piano in their front room.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, yeah, he just did. And then our rhythm guitarist transitioned to our lead, right? And we found like the jankiest synth setting on this keyboard. No. We ended up playing Jump by Van Halen.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Is there a video of this somewhere?
Maybe, but I don't want to find it.
Dude, I would love that.
And here's the reason. Guitarist locked himself in his room to learn that solo, right? He really dedicated himself to it, and it turned out great. He did a great job. Our keyboardist learned the synth, greatness, right? Our drummer was solid. Our bassist knew what he was doing. I was the one that sucked. For sure, right? And it's funny that I sucked because Jump by Van Halen is not a song that requires much vocal dexterity.
Go ahead and jump.
Yeah, it's not a hard song to sing, right? Dude, we even 80s it up. Like we dressed up in like
you guys dressed up like Steel Panther.
No, we dressed up like Van Halen. Like
yeah.
I got like a red tank top, and then like my mom went to Joann's Fabric and got like a mesh that we ripped up, and so I had like the I look like David Lee Roth from the video, right? And here's the thing, I don't think I was a terrible singer. I don't think I'm a terrible singer now. I'm not a good singer, but I don't think I'm terrible. The thing that got me was this high school auditorium was not built for a band to play, right? So what ended up happening is the drums and the guitar drowned everything out. And in my attempt to be heard, I oversang it, right?
That you yelled it?
I yelled it. It ended up being off pitch and out of key in my attempt to be heard over what was being put out by the band, right? I think in a setting where it was rigged for like actual band play, I would have sounded okay, but there was at least a video taken at the time, and I saw it and I realized what I had done. Right? I realized I ruined this for the whole band, right? That was my fault. I knew it was my fault.
You just felt shame.
I felt so terrible. So hopefully that video never comes to light. Anyway, not even a couple months later, our guitarist, the guy who had transitioned to keyboard, moves to Florida. So we're out a guitarist. Our drummer ends up joining a punk band from our high school. There was a punk band, and I'm not going to mention what their name is. I remember what the name is. I'm going to mention it to you afterward because you might recognize them. I didn't like these guys. They were pretty douchey. But our drummer ends up joining them, this punk band. So it's like literally me, and our bassist is like about to go to Stanford, so he has no time to play bass. You know what I mean? So it ends up just being me and my buddy Cameron, who had learned the Van Halen guitar solo. And at that point, it all just kind of washed away.
Dang.
I still had the drum set in my garage, but...
The rise and fall of Against the Current.
Dude, It was
You played a show though.
we played one show.
That's cool.
We played one show.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I look back and I know that I sucked, and I know that my singing was the part that was terrible, but it was fun, man. But, you know, I still, at that point, that's when I actually started trying to learn piano through YouTube tutorials, and I learned a couple chords on the guitar. Because I was like, well, the band thing didn't work out. Maybe it will. I'll try to do my own stuff in the meantime. And yeah, after a couple years, same thing. It kind of just faded off. But yeah, one show in the tank. That's all it took for us to realize it was not meant to be.
It's all right, man.
And all it took for me to realize that I'm not supposed to be a front man, I guess.
You went for it.
Yep. I did like the knee slide, the power slide, and everything.
What?
Man. Oh, yeah, dude.
Dang.
Yeah.
We got to, man.
I was dancing my butt off, dude. I was trying to go full David Lee Roth.
Did you split?
No, I couldn't do that. But I ended up power sliding without remembering that I had like holes in my jeans. So I had like the biggest gnarly like burn on my knees from like the stage.
You burned for your craft.
Yeah. Suffered for the craft, man.
That's wild. Thanks for sharing that. I've never heard that story before.
You're welcome. You're
Jeez.
welcome. That's not a story that I've like told to hardly anybody.
Well, now everybody has it, and everybody's better because of it.
Well, now that I mean, that was, 12 years ago. I think finally I'm able to look at it and giggle about it because it was ridiculous. I think for a long time I was like trying to pretend it didn't happen and be serious about it and be like, no, it's okay. And I didn't suck. But no, yeah, I sucked really bad.
You just scream, jump at the top of your lungs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love that, dude. Awesome. Yeah. So
I want to kick it back to you.
Oh, sure.
You end up touring with Years From Now,
Mm-hmm.
right? At what point, and I'm not trying to skip details. Wait, before I do that, can you tell me either the funniest or craziest tour story that you had from that tour? Like, what was one of the wildest things that happened to you guys? You already told us about the coffee house guy skipping town on his $40, but what was like the goofiest thing that happened to you guys?
Okay, I have a really funny story and I have a crazy story. Okay. I'll tell two. And people that are super close to me know the second story, but I don't know. You may not, whoever's listening, you may not have heard this story, but I'll share it for you today. The short one is the funny one, and there's so many. Yeah, so the story goes, I think we were in like Wyoming or something, and it was really late, and we were at this truck stop, and our vocalist was going to the bathroom. He was going number 2, and the bathroom stalls were really low. So like theoretically you could just peek over them and look at the person going to the bathroom
without even tiptoeing. You could just
look over. And I knew what stall he was in. Or so I thought. And I went into this bathroom and I peeked over and I yelled, "Logan!" And immediately an old man looks up at me, holding himself, sitting on the toilet. I scared the crap out of an old man, literally. And then I went out to the vehicle and I like hid, and he like came out and like got in his car and left. It was so embarrassing. Or like there was actually another time where I was doing a sink bath because all we had was like baby wipes and dry shampoo. So I was in this truck stop bathroom late at night and I was washing my nether region. And
thank you for making it family friendly.
Yeah, an old man walked in on me and my like leg was like propped up on the sink, and it was just like you just see.
Was it propped up we talked about Step Brothers in the last episode?
Like imagine I'll show you here right now.
Okay. Do you remember when John C. Reilly is like assaulted by the wife? And then she goes and pees in the urinal and she has her leg all hiked up.
That's kind of what it was like. Yeah, the part where John C. Reilly goes, "You're incredible."
That part, yeah.
No, but the craziest story from that tour specifically, and it's actually my craziest tour story ever. We played in this town called Prescott, Arizona. You've probably heard this story before.
I think so, but I want to hear it again.
We played in Prescott, Arizona, and we played at this bar. I can't remember the name of it. But we get done playing, and I think there's probably like 30 people there or something, and we get done playing, And Logan and I, the guy that I shouted at in the bathroom, we go outside and these two really cute girls come up to us. And they were like, you guys were great, you know? I was like, thank you.
There are Valley girls everywhere, even in Prescott, Arizona.
They probably didn't talk like that. I'm just giving them a little distinction.
Sure.
But yeah, they go, you guys rocked or something like that. And then I look at Logan and I was like, oh, thank you. And then they're like, where are you guys going next? And I was like, we're going to Flagstaff. And they're like, oh, where are you guys staying? And I was like, we're probably just going to sleep in the van. Like, we don't really have anywhere to stay. And they go, well, we live like 20 minutes away from here and it's on the way to Flagstaff. Do you guys want to come over to our place? And, you know, we'll cook you jalapeno poppers, steak. We have a hot tub. You can.
Wait. Are you goofing on the jalapeno poppers?
No, it was real. They offered
that?
They said they'd make us jalapeno poppers and steak. And then they go.
And all of you went, jalapeno popper. Oh my gosh.
Well, and then they go, we have a hot tub. You guys can do laundry, shower. You have a bed to sleep in. And I looked at Logan and I was like, dinner, cute girls, hot tub, pronto.
100%.
Let's go. So we get into our vehicle and we start following them. And pretty quickly, about 10 minutes or so in, we take a turn onto this dirt road, right? And 20 minutes turns into an hour. And you're probably asking yourself, why didn't you guys turn around? We couldn't. It was like super narrow. It was narrow and like the hill rolled off right there.
Oh.
So we're following these girls in the middle of the night. It was probably like midnight or 1 at this point, down a dirt road for like an hour. We have their phone number. And for those that don't know, for some reason, in every state of the United States, there's always a town called Jerome, and it's always a ghost town. And I don't know why that is, but just like Idaho, Arizona has a town called Jerome, and it's a ghost town. We pull up to this. You can see these like abandoned buildings on the hill, but there's no road to get up there, right? So we get to this town, and Logan has their phone number, the girls in front of us, and he calls them. And they go, we're almost there. And he goes, you said it was 20 minutes away. And then one of them goes, what do you guys think, we brought you out here to kill you or something? And then the other girl starts laughing and then the phone hangs up. And Logan and I look at each other like, uh-oh.
We didn't think about that until just now.
Uh-oh. So we get a little bit further and then all of a sudden their car stops in the middle of the road. And then our car stops behind them. And then their car starts flashing their headlights like they're signaling somebody.
Oh my gosh.
And my heart sank.
You're like, the hills have eyes. We're going down.
I looked at Logan and I was like, dude, what do we do? And he goes, dude, I don't know. And I turned around to Chris and Johnny, who were in the back seat, and I woke them up. And I was like, hey, sorry, not to startle you. You're about to freaking die. I apologize, but you might want to wake up because this is pretty important.
Yeah.
You know? And so they flashed their headlights, and I don't think I've ever been so scared in my entire life. I was like, these girls brought us out here to kill us, and then my brain starts working, right? When you're in intense fear, you have these moments where you're trying to justify what's going on, but then you start picking out little details. And it just doesn't make sense. It's like, why did they drive this far away from their house to see a band they've never heard of?
Yeah.
Why do two really attractive girls live in the middle of nowhere next to a ghost town? What is happening? And then as soon as they flash their headlights, they pause for a minute and they slowly start creeping up.
To you guys?
No, on the road.
Okay.
They're driving. The road turns. And next thing I know, I see barbed wire fences on the left and right of us. There is grass that's probably like freaking 4.5, 5 feet tall. And there are abandoned cars all over this property.
Abandoned cars?
Yes. Like old trucks and shit.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm thinking, who else have they done this to?
Yeah.
So the road, this narrow road finally opens up and we're like in a driveway section. It's like, they're like in this, I don't know, in this like country house. And I look at Logan and I'm like, let's turn around and get out of here. And he goes, go check it out. And I go, you go check it out.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you go check it out. And then I look at Chris in the backseat. I'm like, go. And he's like, I'm not going in there. So I'm like, Logan, I'm not going in there. And he's like, here, take this. And he hands me an aluminum bat. And I'm like, how am I supposed to justify going into this house with an aluminum bat? And he goes, I don't know. He's like, walk on it like you have a limp and say that you hurt your ankle at the show. So I'm like walking into these girls' houses, pimp walking with a bat cane.
Did you guys have that bat in case of self-defense needs?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We had a bat in the vehicle.
Okay.
So I go in, and obviously I'm sitting here today.
Yeah.
Like, nothing bad happened. But, like, I was terrified the whole night. I thought, like, something bad was going to happen. Even though things were working out, I thought that, like, I was skeptical to eat dinner. I'm like, what if there's poison in the jalapeno poppers? And then I was like, falling asleep, I'm like, what if I wake up to them, like, brutally stabbing me in my sleep? It was just like, it never ended. And then the next day, much like the Nahoas did, they gave us a basket full of cheeses and crackers and stuff. We threw it out. We didn't even, like... We were driving off their property and we threw it into the tall grass because we're like, there's poison in there. We're not eating this.
Oh my gosh.
It was so crazy.
So you stayed the night, nothing happened, you guys got out of there.
We got out of there and we went to Flagstaff. But
That's wild, man.
just like we're getting kind of to the tail end here.
Okay.
Just to, music was a big part of my life. Like that was the start of it all. I went on to start another band that is still going today, a band that I saw some pretty good success with. We were in Alternative Press magazine. We were in Revolver magazine. Our publicist that we got, he was the publicist of like Newfound Glory and
cool.
Like Avenged Sevenfold and stuff like that. So we were getting into magazines. We were getting like hype and traction and everything like that. But, long story short, the reason that I no longer play music, I quit my band in 2016, is just because in addition to internal conflicts that come with it, I personally, I was turning into a person that I didn't want to be.
Yeah.
I was very full of myself. I was very big headed. I was just like, I didn't see people as valuable. I saw them as assets, or I saw them as just like accessories to my day.
Yeah.
And I checked myself real quick, and I was like, I don't like who I'm being here.
Can I ask you a quick question? And if this is intrusive or you don't feel like answering it or whatever, that's okay. You said you didn't like the person that you were becoming, right? And was that all a mental thing and all a behavioral thing, or did it? And this is the ignorant, music minded person. Did that have anything to do with like substances or alcohol or anything like that as well? Were you falling into any kind of addictive behavior?
I
or
did.
Was it just like behavior?
No, because I drank a lot, but it was like way before that.
Okay.
That was when I got those things pretty handled.
Okay.
But no, I just thought I was better than everybody. And like I said, I know it should be this long drawn out topic about the successes I saw in music, but the important thing is that it just was toxic for me.
Yeah. Like
I said, we were doing really well with shows, and our EP had come out, and it was getting it was pretty acclaimed. People really liked it. We were getting fans all over the place. It's so interesting. It's what I spent my entire life working towards, and I couldn't stand it. It's so weird. It's like you spend your whole life trying to get to this point, and you finally get there and you realize that it's harmful to your well-being.
Interesting.
And you're like, I'm not willing to. This is the one thing I've sacrificed. My house. I've been homeless for music. I've been carless for music. I've been jobless and moneyless for music. I've ended friendships for music. I've ended relationships for music. I've taken out loans that I never paid back for music. I've done all these things, but the one thing that I'm not willing to give up is myself. I won't do it. So I know that sounds really corny and serious, but trying to be a good person in life is something that means much more to me than being a successful musician.
Yeah.
And I've found success in other ways since.
Yeah.
I'm doing well in my life, but people don't know the inner workings of music. People think it's this like miraculous thing. And that comes down to what I said earlier. When things aren't accessible and they live in mystique, that's where they're at their best.
Yeah.
When you learn what really goes on in bands, and when you really learn like what goes on in people's heads, that actually like the people you idolize and who they really are as people, you would not be a fan. You would not be a fan. I've met some of my heroes and they've been horrible people. Like people that I started playing music, or like not started, but people that like inspired me to want to take that path later on in my years, and they just weren't great people. And I recognized that I was going down that same path and I wanted to get out of it. So I've never actually publicly stated why I quit music. There it is. I never came out like on a post or a video or anything. And I've had people ask me over the years, like Caleb and I went to Warped Tour, and like because my band had played Warped Tour, ton of band, like, and I didn't play, but they played without me. Right. So this was after I left, but I had a ton of people coming up asking me like, why'd you quit the band? What happened? Why are you crazy? Like with everything going on, are you really like, what's wrong with you? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I've never said it until now publicly. I was a shit person. And rather than continue to be selfish, I wanted to feel better about who I was as a human being. And I think like it's so interesting. Like I know on the surface, you were talking earlier about there's like a vanity streak in your mind. It's like almost like fun and it's a driver. Vanity's really freaking dangerous to that extent. Yeah. Right. So it's like, let's say that like you did against the current, just, yeah, you guys played the talent show at your high school, and like, you know, Universal Records, a guy was in the crowd. He's like, hey, you're the next big thing, see? Yeah. And he like signs you. And then next thing you know, like you just, I don't know, maybe you just become a bad person.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting that, so I had I had a similar experience too, where I didn't really like the person I was becoming. And this doesn't have to do with music. So I did my freshman year at a certain college. I went off, and for a couple of years, I did a study abroad kind of religious mission type deal. And when I was getting ready to come back home and pick up my studies again, I had this like, not like identity crisis, but almost like a what's my plan crisis, right? I've put my life on hold. I'm about to come back, go back to studying. And I realized while I was in Argentina, that's where I was. I realized while I was in Argentina, I didn't like the person that I had become when I was going to this college, right? I was in competition with every single person around me. And in order to be in competition, part of me had to believe that I was better than those people, even though I didn't think that that was the truth. You know, in order for me to compare myself with all these people, it was just one of those environments where I could see this like level of pride rising within me, and I didn't like that. And so when I was getting ready to come home, I like debated not going back to school, right? And I come home, and through the course of different things, I end up deciding to transfer to a different school. Like maybe it's the school, or at least maybe it's my mental attachment to this school that's creating this rise of pride in me that I don't really like, you know? So I ended up transferring, and to a certain extent, I'm able to leave that behind, kind of the way that you did when you were finished with music, right? So my similar experience to yours doesn't really have anything to do with me leaving music behind. Although at that point, I did stop playing piano, playing guitar. It was just kind of a coincidence that I let that stuff fall by the wayside. But I can totally relate to that experience that you had where I said, I don't really like the person that I'm becoming, and there's some kind of change in environment that I need in order to pursue the person that I do want to become, right? I have to change something about my physical environment to leave that weirdness behind because I don't want it as part of my life, you know?
Well, and like people out there, here we go, going into a philosophical cap, but sometimes we need to check ourselves and we need to check in with ourselves and see, are we truly meeting our own standards? And your standards of yourself should be honest and high. And when I say high, I don't mean externally. I mean your heart needs to be in a good place. And maybe to some people that doesn't matter or they don't think about that kind of stuff, but like self-awareness and being able to challenge yourself and say like, hey, am I sucking? You should have those conversations with yourself. It's like, and you know, there's other factors as to why I left music. I was sick of being broke. I needed to become financially stable, and I needed to like make myself comfortable and rooted because my whole life was chaotic and I was done with that.
Yeah.
However, I think it's necessary for us to constantly, as regularly as you can, ask that question, am I living up to the standards of being my greatest self? And again, that doesn't always correlate to success financially or success, you know, whether how many cars you have or how often you get to travel or whatever. It's like, can I go to bed at night knowing that I lead with love? Yeah. And can I go to bed at night knowing that I believe in others as much as I believe in myself? And can I go to bed at night knowing that I root for others?
Yeah.
And when you stop rooting for others, when you stop seeing others as an equal to yourself, and when you stop leading with love, you're like, you're screwed. Long term, you're going to live a miserable life. And I don't want that for myself.
Yeah.
And I'm still undoing a lot of the damage that I had done to my own mind, but I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think, and to, you know, echo what you're saying and say it in my own words, you know, there's my ultimate pursuit is for happiness. You know what I mean? Like I want to be happy and I want to be joyful. And I think at certain points in my life, I've misunderstood the pursuit of something else that will lead to happiness, right? It's like I'm pursuing a superiority among other people.
Like that's where happiness lives.
Because that's what will bring me happiness, right? Or I'm pursuing a status or an accomplishment because that's what will bring the happiness, right? When it's really not that at all. It's pursue happiness for the sake of happiness. Don't pursue something that you think is going to bring it to you, right? It's like those accomplishments, those experiences don't render happiness. The innate joy is something that you just build and make, and then all that other stuff happens in turn.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, it's kind of like my career now. Like I don't ever put if blank happens, I'll feel happy.
Yeah.
Because
that's dangerous.
It's super dangerous and it's not true and it's not fair. Like I have so many good things in my life right now because I feel like I'm not giving them too much steam. They're just another thing that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
But day after day, the only thing that I care most about is like, am I at peace and am I showing others kindness and love? And I slip up sometimes and I make mistakes.
Yeah.
But like, make no mistake, I personally am trying my best, and music derailed me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
However, nowadays, I'm that kid that I used to be, sitting in my room being a social outcast, playing guitar and feeling proud of myself.
Some full circle. That's crazy.
The way it started is the way it's going.
Yeah.
Now I sit in my room and I play guitar. No one's around. No one cheers me on. and I don't care.
And you feel great.
I feel great. I feel proud when I learn stuff because that was the big picture the whole time. I just lost sight of it, and I think that's where I'll end it.
Good for you, man. Thank you for sharing that with me. We managed to find that philosophical ending that we have in the last couple.
That we've been joking about on every episode.
I know.
It's like we somehow ended that on a philosophical note.
Yeah, we did it again. And I don't think that we anticipated that from this music episode. But yeah, to cap things off, again, appreciate you sharing all that with me. This has been a cool discussion, a cool conversation. We want to thank everybody for listening. We're having a blast. We've got a few more episodes that we're going to record. Some fun topics that we're going to go over. It's going to be a bunch of fun as we finish up this first season, this first go at our podcast, and having a blast. I hope that everybody or anybody who has been listening so far is also having fun. And, reach out to us through our Instagram, reach out to us, drop a comment. Let us know if you want us to talk about anything. Let us know what your experience with music has been, or if in general you've had that same experience where you've realized something about yourself that you don't really like. And just want to say thank you to everybody. Thanks for listening. This is a bunch of fun.
Yeah, we appreciate it. This was episode 8 of the Very Refreshing Podcast. We will see you guys next week. Take care.
Thank you for checking out the Very Refreshing Podcast. Subscribe for more content just like this.